He was watching TV in the security booth when suddenly, a girl burst in. Without hesitation, she shoved a pile of snacks into his hands, acting like they were old friends. Jimin was puzzled by her familiarity and asked, "Who are you?"
How was you?
The unfamiliar voice startled the girl. It turned out she was blind. Every evening after work, she would come by to chat with the elderly security guard, unaware that he had retired and returned to the countryside that day. Embarrassed, she took the snacks back from Jimin and stood up to leave. Just then, it started to rain. Jimin offered to let her stay and wait out the storm. They sat together watching TV. Though Jinghwa couldn't see, she listened intently. Before leaving, she handed Jimin a homemade rice roll and reminded him to water the night-blooming jasmine behind the booth once a week. Back home, Jimin ate the rice roll from the stranger, a smile of quiet joy spreading across his face. From then on, Jinghwa came to the booth every day to watch TV. Jimin would sit quietly beside her, admiring her gentle beauty. Through their conversations, he learned she worked as a customer service rep for the visually impaired. Years ago, a car accident had taken her parents. She survived, but lost her sight. Her boss often harassed her, but she never dared speak up. Though blind, her hearing and sense of smell were incredibly sharp. One day, she politely asked Jimin to open the door for ventilation. One day, sing it like. He instinctively sniffed the air, realizing it was the smell of his own socks. Mortified, he went out and scrubbed his feet over and over. When she left, they shook hands. It was the first time they felt each other's warmth. A seed of affection quietly began to grow. Curious about the calluses on his hands, Jinghwa asked what he used to do. But Jimin didn't want to revisit that painful past. He had once been a professional boxer. After retiring, he worked as a debt collector. One day, he confronted a man who owed money and beat him mercilessly. Unable to pay, the man climbed onto a windowsill, doused himself in fuel, and jumped. Jimin rushed to grab him. The man survived, but Jimin was sentenced to 4 years in prison. After his release, guilt drove him to visit the man regularly at a care facility. Life had worn down Jimin's edges. He thought he'd live out his days in quiet obscurity, until Jinghwa came along and changed everything. He began looking forward to seeing her each day. He'd air out the booth ahead of time, making sure there were no unpleasant smells. When he heard the familiar tap of her cane, his face lit up. He knew she was near. Jinghwa grew curious about what Jimin looked like. Owning on corn on home. One evening, on her way home, a car horn startled her. She fell, cutting her foot on a broken bottle. Jimin rushed over and took her to the hospital. On the way back, she struggled to walk, so Jimin offered to carry her. With a mischievous grin, she revealed that her home was up a long flight of stairs. After finally getting her home, she asked him to help unclog her drain. To thank him, she gave him 2 concert tickets and invited him to go with her. On the way back, Jimin was as happy as a child, his exhaustion completely forgotten. Jinghwa began looking forward to their first date. She got a trendy new haircut, picked out a beautiful outfit, and sprayed on perfume. Though she couldn't see herself, she wanted to show Jimin her best side. After the concert, they went out for barbecue. When Jinghwa asked again about his past, Jimin suddenly turned cold. When Jinxmina, his reaction deeply hurt her. She thought he was rejecting her because she was blind. Heartbroken, she got up and left. Jimin followed her all the way home. Just as she was about to go inside, he confessed everything. He wasn't ashamed of her. He was ashamed of himself. He didn't know how to answer her question. Jinghwa simply said goodnight, and from that day on, she never came to see him again. One day, Jimin finally gathered the courage to apologize, but as soon as he walked in, he saw Jinghwa's boss harassing her. In a flash, Jimin punched the man to the ground. Jinghwa cried and begged him to stop, to teach the man a lesson. Jimin broke one of his fingers, then quickly covered the man's mouth so Jinghwa wouldn't be frightened by his screams. But instead of gratitude, Jinghwa blamed him. I just test him on to Quail. Then I tell him just give him Pat Quail. I just seek him out, then I take him to it. Speechless, Jimin quietly walked away. It wasn't that Jinghwa didn't want to be with him. She was afraid she'd become a burden. From then on, Jimin followed her from a distance, silently protecting her. The blind girl was followed into her home by her boss. Just when things were about to go wrong, her boyfriend arrived in the nick of time. Jimin threw a punch that knocked the boss to the ground. Jinghwa sat nearby, crying and begging Jimin to stop. To teach the man a lesson, Jimin broke one of his fingers, then covered the boss's mouth so his screams wouldn't scare Jinghwa. But instead of being grateful, Jinghwa blamed Jimin. She was terrified that if she got fired, she'd lose her only source of income. Jimin told her he'd take care of her. But nothing like free to quail. To what that's an pet quay. It just took what did not take him to. But with nothing wet to say, he quietly walked away. It wasn't that Jinghua didn't want to be with him. She was just afraid she'd become a burden. From that day on, Jimin began following her from a distance, protecting her silently. Jinghua, sensitive as she was, noticed everything. One evening, she came to find Jimin and told him she had quit her job. Patimas heading in. The kickend came quickly. Ben Simon took a dog. And being named as seated a worrisome meter. Hoping. The weekend came quickly. Jimin Bradbury Gray died and maintained Weo. Meeting no worries, Hokensi could live a carefree life from now on. They went to a grassy riverside, and with a pair of smooth pebbles as tokens, they made their relationship official. To give Jinghua a better life, Jimin decided to return to the boxing ring. He began training hard. To make their home safer for her, he remodeled the house, smoothing out sharp corners, removing thresholds, and replacing the windows to let the sunlight in. Jinghua gently touched Jimin's face, wanting to memorize the features of the man she loved. During the day, Jimin fought in matches. Jinghua stayed home, tidying up. At night, they watched TV together. Their bond grew stronger with each passing day. One day, Jinghua took Jimin to visit her parents' grave. It was their death anniversary. There, she finally shared the truth about how she lost her sight. Years ago, she had witnessed a man engulfed in flames fall from a building. The shock distracted her while driving, causing the tragic accident that took her parents and her vision. Gemma remembered that moment vividly, because the man on fire was the debtor he had once chased down. If he hadn't gone to collect that debt, Jinghua might never have lost her family or her sight. Racked with guilt, Gemma unleashed his rage on the punching bag. He didn't know how to face her. Just as he worked up the courage to confess, Jinghua accidentally injured her hand while cooking. At the hospital, the doctor gave Jimin devastating news. Jinghua's eyes were deteriorating. If she didn't get a corneal transplant within a month, she might never recover her vision, but the surgery would cost a fortune. Desperate, Jimin reached out to a former trainee, hoping for help. The trainee introduced him to his boss, who agreed to cover all the medical expenses. On one condition, Jimin had to fight an illegal match overseas. Jimin knew the risks. He might not come back, but for the woman he loved, for the chance to help her see the world again, he accepted without hesitation. To raise enough money for his blind girlfriend's eye surgery, the man agreed to fight in an illegal underground match. Before leaving, he destroyed all his personal documents and received a new identity from the boss. He went to the hospital and told Jinghua, "Once your surgery is done, I'll be the first person you see." With that, Jimin entered the underground fight club. His former trainee warned him there were no rules. The only way to win was to knock the opponent out completely. Jimin was quickly taken down in the match. Everyone thought he was finished, until he remembered the woman he loved. Fueled by love, he began to fight back. With a stunning flying kick, Jimin won the match. The prize was a diamond worth millions. All he had to do was bring it back safely to complete the mission. Soon, Jimin returned to Korea. He called the doctor and learned that Jinghu's surgery was a success. Overwhelmed with joy, he thanked him repeatedly. Just then, a car sped up behind him and hit him. Inside was his former trainee. Turns out, the trainee had bet everything on Jimin losing, and lost it all. They stole the diamond from Jimin's bag. Just as they were about to finish him off, a passing car forced them to flee the scene. After Jinghua was discharged, she heard nothing from Jimin. She went to the police to report him missing, but because they weren't married or related, her request was denied. 2 years passed. Jinghua opened a pottery studio. She turned down every suitor, holding on to the belief that one day, Jimin would return to her. Using only her memories, she tried again and again to sculpt his face, but could never get it right. She clutched the blurry statue and broke down in tears. In her free time, Jinghua volunteered at a rehab center, helping patients with recovery massages. One day, she met a new patient. It was Jimin, who had barely survived. Jinghua walked over to help him with therapy. Jimin held back his tears, afraid his voice would give him away. He felt unworthy of the perfect woman she had become. But as Jinghua massaged his back, a familiar sensation ran through her fingertips. It felt just like Jimin. She instinctively looked at the nameplate by the bed. Seeing a different name, she gave a faint, self-mocking smile. After she left, Jimin could no longer hold back. Tears streamed down his face as he let go of the pebble he'd been clutching. Not long after, Jimin decided to leave the center. He went to Jinghua's studio, hoping to see her one last time. There, he saw the little turtle. He quietly took it with him. If he couldn't reunite with her, at least he'd have something to remember her by. But before he got far, Woyo, the guide dog, tackled him to the ground, wagging its tail excitedly. Jinghua ran over and helped him up. She asked, "Have we met before?" Jimin didn't dare speak. He knew Woyo had recognized him, so he turned and walked away. All his longing, sorrow, and love erupted at once. He could only silently wish happiness for the woman he loved so deeply. Back at the studio, Jinglong noticed the turtle was missing. Just as she was about to ask her staff, Woyo barked wildly toward the door. Something collecting Jingle was mine. Barked ting Jileska for? Some Shiritum Chiai outside did. She rushed outside, searching the streets for the man she'd been waiting for, but once again, he was gone. Jinghua collapsed to the ground, sobbing. She pounded her chest, regretting not recognizing him sooner. But she didn't give up. She thought of one place Jemin might go, the riverside where they had felt their love. She gently touched the face she had longed for day and night. She whispered, "You're the only one I see." They embraced tightly. Because of him, her world finally had light.